Remember back in February, we showed you the process of transplanting this crop of green pepper here on Dubai 1. We also shared how we planned for it and how we prepared the bed. I know some of you have been anxiously waiting to find out what happened to it, how the crop grew and how it all worked out. Well, after being in the ground for the past 5 months, this crop has had quite an interesting journey. On this video, we're going to be focusing on our experience growing this crop, the things that we do, and having a look at it now. As you will see, the crop has certainly seen better days, and it looks like its future may not be so bright. Over the last month or so, it has been battered by the weather, and we now have it on life support, waiting to see if the story will go on. But before that, we're going to share with you all of the things we do to look after the crop, to protect it from baddies, and to feed it the right things at the right time. We're also going to show you some amazing harvest that we got from it. And by the end of the video, you will probably have formed an opinion as to whether or not the crop has had its time and should be taken away, or we should continue trying to nurture and harvest it for just a little bit longer. Stay with us. Greetings from the farm. I hope you're well. It's so good to have you back with us again here on the Mondo Farms channel. My name is Chisha Folotia, and this is the green pepper crop that we have on a field called Dubai 1. By the way, in this area of the farm, the fields that we've demarcated are located on the side of this big hill that comes from up there and slopes down to the Chongo River, which is down at the bottom. In every part of the farm, we choose a theme for naming the fields. We might choose American presidents, we might choose types of trees or something like that. But here, we chose Asian cities. At the very top of the hill, near what we call the Apex Reservoir, the ground is quite slopey and rocky. We couldn't do much with it, so we decided to plant these pine trees. A little bit further down, we found an area that was less slopey and had some good loamy soil. We're going to be planting some vegetables down there. We call this area Bombay, and currently it is housing a crop of winter maize. After Bombay, the ground slopes again, and we call this area Baghdad. Couldn't do much with it again, so we planted some more pine trees. And at the far eastern edge of the farm is another place that had some very questionable land that we weren't quite sure what to do with it. So a couple of years ago, we started planting some eucalyptus there. And here is Dubai, which has this green pepper crop and one of our last eggplant crops. We've been making these YouTube videos, sharing the journey about how we develop and operate our 2 farms on the outskirts of Chongwe, 40 kilometers east of Lusaka now, for the past couple of years. And over that time, we've developed a certain understanding of the type of person that will be watching this video. A person who is probably engaged in or interested in agriculture, a person in Africa that does things on the scale and in the context that we do. Here at Mondo Farms, we have chosen to take vegetable farming as our primary business. Yes, we do some other things like grow trees for the long term and field crops during the rainy season, but throughout the year, under irrigation, we grow various vegetables. We've done all sorts of things over the years. Our journey started a long time ago now, it seems, with cabbage. At one point, we grew quite a lot of onion and had some interesting results. We also grow carrots like we're doing at Kimberley. But our main focus of operation are things that we term as fruiting vegetables. These are things like cucumbers. And for the last couple of years, we've been growing quite a lot of eggplant. We also do zucchini. And in the last 8 to 10 months or so, we've really stepped up our production of sweet pepper. By the way, sweet pepper is what they call capsicum in East Africa. Our sweet pepper production here at Mondo Farms is done in 2 different ways. The first one is on places like here at Dubai 1, where we grow the pepper in an open field. Here, it is harvested while it is still green. We also grow some of our sweet pepper in what we call protected areas, like this shade house. Here, the sweet pepper can be protected from the sun and the weather and have a good chance of successfully turning into its final color, which can be red, yellow, or orange. We're going to show you what can happen to pepper in the open field when left exposed to the sun later in this video. There's quite a difference in the market price of green pepper and colored peppers, and I don't have to tell you which one fetches more, right? And that is why, since 2021, Mondo Farms has been investing a lot of resources into having more protected growing areas. Well, you know how the Mondo Farms journey has always been moving forward, always taking things to the next level. When it comes to protected houses, the best that you can have is a greenhouse. And right now at Kimberley, we are in the final touches of the construction of our first ever greenhouse. We're so excited because having this greenhouse will massively improve our ability to be able to grow high-value vegetables throughout the year. And yes, of course, we're going to be featuring this greenhouse in one of our videos on the Mondo Farms channel soon. One of the most important things we want as farmers growing high-value fruiting vegetables is for the plants that we put in the ground to be able to produce fruits for us for months and months and months. We want harvest after harvest after harvest. But that doesn't happen by itself. And there's a number of things that we as farmers have to do in order to make that happen. The main thing is that the mindset and the approach is very different from how we do things like rooting vegetables, the carrots and the onions, or leafy vegetables like the cabbage or the cauliflower or the broccoli. With fruiting vegetables, we take a lot more time and put in a lot more effort in order for them to be producing and fruiting for us successfully. But first, we start with the basics, crop husbandry. Now, these are the things that are done throughout the time that a farmer or a gardener has a certain crop in the field. They are the simple, basic things we do to keep it alive, to help it grow until it gets to where we want it to be. Now, in the case of fruiting vegetables here at Mondo Farms, we're not growing them for them to look nice and green and beautiful so that we can post nice pictures on WhatsApp groups or Facebook or whatever. We're very selfish. There's something very specific and particular that we want from these fruiting vegetables. We want them to bear fruit, literally bear fruit. Fruits that we can then harvest and take to the market.
Dubai 1 block A. Amenti chaya manyu dingi. Mo green pepper. So after the tira mama idza boera.
So yes, of course, after transplanting the crop on February 17, we spent the next few weeks looking after it, which involves going in several times for things like weeding. Our young plants need to be protected from competition from unwanted plants growing around and within the beds. Feeding. We apply fertilizers that have the right elements to help the plants establish roots, to grow thick stems and healthy leaves, which are needed for photosynthesis. Protection. It's important for us to apply various insecticides to kill or to control the pest that wants to eat our little plants. And we also apply fungicides that help us to prevent or to cure disease. One of my favorite things about farming is that we are continuously learning new things and adopting new techniques. One of the great modern agronomic practices that, to be honest, Mondo Farms has only really learned about this year, especially during the tough drought and low rainfall that we had during the rainy season, is this thing called mulching. Now, mulching is where you put a protective layer along the ground that helps us to control soil moisture loss. We want to keep as much moisture in the root area where the plants can be taking it up and living healthily. There are many different ways of doing mulching. Some are very complicated, but what we've done is very simple. We cut grass from around the farm, different areas where we don't need the grass, and then we bring it over to our fields and lay it along the beds in a protective layer. Yes, it takes quite a lot of work and takes quite a bit of time. But as I said, this is high-value vegetable farming. Nothing comes easy. And you know what? We are really appreciating the benefits of the mulching. Yes, we've already got the drip irrigation down there as the most effective way of directly putting water down to our crops. But here we're taking things to another level, the next level, whereby you preserve even more moisture by reducing the evaporation that would normally come. Those basic crop husbandry practices that we do are done throughout the lifetime of the plant. It will always need to be watered, it needs to be fed, protected, and of course, the mulching stays on forever. But once the plants are through the establishment phase, through the vegetative stage, and they've got nice, healthy leaves, photosynthesis is happening, that's when, for me, it gets very exciting. That's when we start to do some of the specialized things that will guide our crops towards becoming what we want them to be. Productive members of our farming community. Now, some of the things that we do may be seen as controversial by some people, but let's give it some context. So as farmers at our level, we have fruiting vegetables that we're growing and they're producing fruits, right? But we don't just want a lot of fruits. Yambidi. At our level, we want fewer fruits, we want healthier fruits, and we want bigger fruits. So we need to control how the natural fruit production process on the plants happens. As the pepper plants are growing in their vegetative stage, we start to see a lot of little side shoots coming off the sides of the stems. And we send in our teams to go in there and remove those suckers. Two main reasons for that. Number one is the leaves that grow near the ground are susceptible to diseases. So we want to have clear stems, which also gives us very good ventilation around the base of the plants. Number two is a more important reason. I don't know which is more important anyway. We want our stems to grow nice and tall as well as nice and thick so that our plant will then be able to be very big and strong like this and hold some of those big fruits that we are hoping to harvest in days to come. Around the time that our little pepper plants are about, I would say, 20, 30 centimeters or so, you start seeing little flowers forming on some of the nodes. Now, on the one hand, that's a good thing. It's a sign that the plant is healthy and ready to go into its reproductive stage. But we don't want those flowers to be pollinated and to become fruits. As far as we're concerned, it is still young. We don't need you to start producing children yet. We're gonna tell you when we are ready to go, you little flower. So what we do is our team comes in along, and while they are pruning and doing other things, they start picking out those little king flowers. So far, so good. Our team has done a lot of work over the past weeks to get our plants through the vegetative stage. We're now reaching a point whereby the plants have got a bit of height, 30 plus centimeters or so. They've got some thick stems, which will allow them to be able to handle the fruit load that they will be carrying very soon when they start producing. And they've also got a nice bushy vegetative cover that will allow them to produce a lot of photosynthesis, to make food, as well as to cover the little fruits that will be coming. More on that later. What happens at this stage is that we start seeing the plants enter the reproductive stage for real, and we start seeing a lot of little flowers forming on the plants. And this is a signal for us as farmers to change up the type of food that we've been giving them. Prior to this, we were giving them vegetative nutrition, stuff with a lot of nitrogen to make the whole thing nice and healthy, to give them chiriati, chitupi, chibodi. But now we change things up and we introduce a lot more potassium into their feeding. Of all of the three main elements that we as farmers feed our crops throughout their life cycle to help them grow, that's NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, I'd have to say that my personal favorite is potassium. And that is because potassium is usually applied towards the end phase, when I'm tired of putting in money and resources into the crop, and we are now going towards the end phase, towards the bank balance stage. Potassium is the element that is important and helpful towards flowering, fruit formation, and fruit growth. We apply potassium to our crops in various ways. Some of that is the foliar sprays that we see us doing. Now, with a foliar spray, it means that we're driving along and we are applying a spray that is then lands on the leaves and gets absorbed into the plant. The other way is through drenching, through things like fertigation, where we put the liquid chemical into the ground, down by the roots through the drip irrigation, and it can then be taken up into the plant. And we have one product here at Mondo Farms that we really like to use when it comes to applying potassium fertilizers to our crops. And that is something called Voema Flower and Fruit. We've used various things over the years from different manufacturers in different ways at different scales. But you know how in life they tend to come to one particular thing. I bet you in your home, you've got a certain type of mini meal that you like to eat, maybe a certain type of breakfast cereal that you all like to eat. There's different options, but you almost always choose this one. Here at Mondo Farms, Voema Flower and Fruit has been our go-to for several years, and we can't really see anything changing, and we're going to continue using it for quite some time to come. So with our potassium fertilizers applied, the plants respond by starting to produce a lot of fruits. I mean, a lot of little fruits. And this is something that you might think would make us happy as farmers, right? No. As I said before, we farmers are selfish, and farmers at our level are looking for something very specific. We don't want our plants to produce a lot of little small green peppers. We want them to produce fewer, healthier, bigger green peppers. Now, in order to do that, we have to send in our teams to carry out a very important practice. It's called fruit balancing. When I first learned about the practice of fruit balancing, I found it quite hard to imagine sacrificing all of those little fruits after all. And I'm sure some of you are probably feeling the same way. But after doing fruit balancing on our fruiting vegetables for the last couple of crops, I think I really understand the benefits and the advantages of it. I've come round around to seeing how it really helps us produce the type of things that we can take to market and give to the type of customers that Mondo Farms has built up over the years. As the old saying goes, less is more. When we look at fields of fruiting vegetables, maybe like tomatoes or cucumbers, or maybe the winelands of Constantia in the Western Cape or something like that, one thing you almost always notice is that they have put in systems of sticks or stakes and ropes and strings and stuff. That is called trellising, and it is a very important thing for keeping the plants healthy and productive. Now, there's many different ways that trellising done for different crops around the world in different areas, and it depends on certain various things. For example, what are the materials that are available to the farmer or the grower? What kind of budget is he working at? And also the knowledge, experience, and exposure of the people that are farming in that area. Oh, and a very important factor that determines how people farm around the world: local practices and traditions. We've covered the basics and the benefits of trellising before in our other videos here on the Mondo Farms channel, so I won't go into too much detail. You can have a look at videos like this one that we did last year on how we trellised our cucumbers at Kondwani 1 in Kimberley, which is quite extensive. The main purpose of trellising is that it helps the plants grow better, and it makes it easier for farmers and gardeners to look after and harvest the fruits. For taller crops like our cucumber and our colored peppers, we use a setup like this, which has tall stakes with barbed wires running across the tops. And then we have these strings coming down to hold up the plants. In our case, we use baling twine. But for shorter crops that only grow bushy like eggplants or these sweet peppers, we don't need all of that. We use a system that has stakes placed at various intervals, and then we have our baling twine running along the side. Our main aim is to prevent the fruits from falling over when they're laden with heavy fruits. By the way, the local name for baling twine in Zambia is tomato rope. I'm very proud of the way that our Mondo Farms team is always coming up with better ways of doing things. They're able to innovate new ways to get better results, and that is exactly what they did when setting up the trellising system for this green pepper crop here on Dubai 1. They use their knowledge, experience, and passion to fine-tune the way that the stakes and the strings were set up in order to solve a particular problem with the way that the green pepper grows.
So this is the new system of trellising, where we put a T, making a crucifix, then we're putting baling twine on either side. Then we're going with a whole line to the next pole, as you can see here. Then we're supporting the papers on either sides, this side and the next line. So you're saying, so now we're saying next line ye boira tiboy komela somewhere up pamamba. So ati yanga up pamamba. It's simple. It's very, very simple and nice. It's smart. So here at Dubai 1 Block A and B, we have our California Wonder sweet pepper that we're seeing here. That's almost ready for harvest. We're going to make our first harvest this coming Monday. So the fruits are big and hard, ready for harvest.
So this is the part of the story that is the happy stage. And you can see me do a little dance like this, night fever. Because after all of the hard work that our team had been putting in, our crop was finally ready to start being harvested. The first harvest was done on April 15, which, if you remember our transplant date of February 17, marked almost exactly 2 months. This was the start of a happy period, and we had a lot of good harvests to come in the following weeks.
So for the next harvest again, food demanded sankana kozi ma fruits enangu peseka ya step by step mantima konkera kuta fruit balancing na peseka ndema nenda kuya sota so pasa 2 days kuti kwase 2 months per ground koza pasa na 1 month na ma days up.
So we're here at Winter Fun, where we are packing our harvest, our 4 crates of red pepper and our 4 crates of yellow pepper, about 100 and something kgs altogether. And now we are cleaning up and sorting and grading our green pepper harvest. This is our first cut harvest, and we've had an amazing harvest. So the guys are cleaning them up. Here's the difference, removing the sand that's there so that they are presentable. So careful na kuyaponya, saziyaponya yangazi pwanyika. So tutuna ngundu ngono but ntokosa. OPV wa Mwanza.
So hapa tupo ma storeroom. Pantrodi na ma sweet peppers. Mudutu.
So we had harvest after harvest for the next several Mondays. Things were going well. Your comment?
No comments really. The crop looks very good, healthy, no problem. The fruit size, I think the fruit size is okay because they didn't complain on the fruit size that we delivered to our clients. It does help us because nishankala na space na room. It's like we've improved now. Yeah, yankala na space na room to grow because the way they are like this, yankala mangana, there's just too much tension.
Yeah. So I think it's a good idea. And it's a great innovation, man. The guy is well done.
Thank you, sir.
Dubai 1 block A. Ndio matambushta apply green sulfur 35 on my green papers. So testa continue tafaka 5 gram per plant. So manga mantafakira patika seeds immediate. Tambo bati vala foot again so.
But this, my dear viewers, subscribers, and people across Africa and the rest of the world, is farming in the real world. Nothing good can last forever. People my age are able to remember the late 90s and the early 2000s when two teams dominated the Premier League. It was either Arsenal or Man U that would win the league every season, and things were well. I mean, there was nothing wrong with that. There was even one season, 2004, when Arsenal went unbeaten the whole season. We call them the Invincibles and shall forever honor them. But that was all before things changed. Mourinho came to Chelsea. The noisy neighbors got new owners, a free stadium, and started showing the effects of their very, very deep pockets. It was definitely before Pep Guardiola moved from Munich to Manchester and started doing what he has been doing for the last several years, which, yeah, I agree, it's becoming quite boring. The same thing happened with our green pepper crop here on Dubai 1. After all the happy times and getting used to good results and very good yields, by the middle of June, the smiles had been wiped from our faces. Things changed as we started facing some troubling times. At the beginning of June, we had a massive harvest from our pepper crops. It was a bit like when Arsenal went to Stamford Bridge sometime in April and we walloped them. Was it 5-0 or was it 6-0? I know, like most of us, we lost count at some point. Anyway, the harvest was proper.
So in the so we went grading after sorting out my so it na 200 kgs. So then yasoweto evet na 300 kgs. So in total pamozi yonse yama green peppers this week tina 500 kgs. So ma crates in total ntina yonse pamozi so ta harvest ma crates yali 40. So yonse ma crates ntina kuno ku winterthorn ta few yonse yazula. So independent pa sit and harvest ya this week. But at least kulingana na weather until nayo na mene ma fruits mani yankali ya quality until nayo ni abwino maningi cause kuzizira maningi. So inkala ko challenge ma fruits uti ya kule bwino yankala ko strong atukombo zizira maningi. But at least number si bwera maningi pansa at least tukasa kutenga kuma crates kwa na 40 istiri tuko bwino at least.
But for the harvest the following week, the yield was subdued, you know? I guess it was like when Arsenal went to the Etihad and came out with a draw. It was just okay. It could have been worse. It could have been better. I guess you can see that as we come towards the end of July, my mind is starting to think about the coming Premier League season. Now all of that Euro stuff is done. I'm not one for international football. Me, I believe in the thing that I am passionate about. Anyway, back to the harvest. As the team was in the field here at Dubai 1, they noticed that a lot of the fruits were being affected by sun scald. What is sun scald? Sun scald is something that may look like a disease, but it is actually damaged caused by the fruits being affected by the heat rays, the sun, and it causes an injury which then damages the crop. What do we do with sun scalded fruits? Yes, on the one hand, we could take them to the market, but think about it, the price that we would get for these damaged little sickly fruits wouldn't be very good. And on the other hand, Mondo Farms is the type of business that has built up a reputation over the years with our customers for supplying quality vegetables. If we took stuff like this to them, bazati wanelamo. I've spent the last 30 plus years in businesses, and one of the things I've really realized and come to work very hard on is the reputation of our individual businesses and looking after your customers and maintaining good customer relationships with them. So we have all these sun-scalded fruits all over the fields. We can't harvest them. We take what we can, and then the following day, we send in the team to go back in there and remove all the sun-scalded fruits. We're basically going to throw them away. One of the most important reasons why we go in and remove the sun-scalded fruits is that we don't want them to remain on our stems and our plants, and the plant will continue trying to look after that and grow that fruit. It is something that is not going to bring us any value, and the plant is going to then waste a lot of energy, a lot of food, and a lot of water trying to grow that fruit, because the plant doesn't know, does it, that that fruit that it is trying to look after and grow is already damaged, that its story is done. So we have to go in there and we remove the sun-scalded fruits in order to allow the plant to go, oh, I don't have a fruit on my thingy anymore. Let me produce a new flower that can then be pollinated and become a fruit that Mr. Folotia, the owner of Mondo Farms, can then take to market to sell and then make some money in order to afford one day possibly tickets for a Premier League match. How do we solve a problem like this? There are several approaches. Some people, when they're faced with a problem, it's sad to say that they run away from it. They maybe bury their heads in the sand. Maybe they will go towards some sort of religious practices or something in order to solve the problem. If you know my personal family history, is that I was in a situation where I was left with family and business and other assets to look after from a very early age. So I've had 3 decades of looking after things and solving problems, starting this, doing all sorts of things. One of the things that I do when I'm faced with this is do a process of troubleshooting. And in troubleshooting, we start looking at what are the various factors that could have changed around the time when the problem started to occur. One of the most important things that happened around early June is that the weather got much colder. In fact, the commonly used phrase to describe the cold season in Zambia is simply the word Juni. You always hear Titimavala majuzi mujuni. And what happens when the weather gets colder is that the plant's metabolic rate slows down. Its growth rate slows down. Everything in the plant growth slows down. So the pepper crop are producing these beautiful pepper fruits, and instead of them taking X amount of days for them to ripen and be ready for us to come along on a Monday and pluck them and take them to the market and make some money to pay back the loans. Yeah, okay, I digress. Okay, instead of all of that happening, the sun is coming along and hitting them. Because the sun around this time of year and with the high UV index that we have these days with climate change, it can really hit. So the sun scald is happening to the fruits because they are staying on the plants much longer than they normally would. Our answer to the problem was to do a set of 2 different things, and they both involve what we were applying to our green pepper crop during this time. There are various products on the market that are meant to help crops that are stressed. We are talking about times when it's too hot, like we get from September, October, November in this part of the world. Times when there's simply too much rain and moisture, like we get maybe from February and March when we get a normal rainy season. And times like this time of the year when it is too cold. We call them on our farm boosters, and they're products like Novamax, which we get from AgriFocus. We had been spraying that religiously throughout most of the months, May into June, but we kind of amped up our application of it and took it to the max dosage that we could in order to try and help the stressed cope better and take care of itself a little bit more than it was actually doing. The second thing that we tried to do was to encourage more vegetative cover on our green pepper crop. As you remember, we took it from the establishment phase into the vegetative phase when most of the green foliage on the leaves and stems and whatever it is was being created. And then we turned our focus into the reproductive phase, into production of fruits. So what we did here, because we wanted to get, as the fruits are there, we've said the sun scald is hitting them, they're not ripening as quickly. So if we can have more leaves covering up our green pepper little fruits, then we should be okay. So we had moved from Voema Vegetative as our foliar spray that we were doing, and we had gone into Voema Flower and Fruit with the phosphorus, as I said earlier. Well, in this case, we actually went back to Voema Vegetative in order to increase the nitrogen and try and encourage more leaf growth. Farmers are always trying various and different things when faced with some of those challenges. You know what? It looked like our actions of increased booster application and trying to encourage more green vegetative growth were just starting to have fruit and things looked a little bit better. Then our crop was hit with the next big challenge. So June is the peak of the cold season here in this part of the world. June is our coldest month, and what happens when you get moisture in the atmosphere and very cold temperatures? Things freeze up. You get frost, and frost can be devastating. adapting to plants. I don't know how to stress that. There are people all over the world who base their whole planting calendar, whether they should start or stop or whatever it is, according to frost. And people say, you can plant after the last frost and all of that. Well, here we are with a crop that's already in the field when the cold season comes along. And the issue is what happens to it. The way that frost damages plants is that the plant leaves, stems, and you know, the internal circulation system is full of water. When it gets ice cold, it freezes. And that bursts the cell walls and all sorts of damage. We won't go into too deep into it. You can research it yourself. But safe to say that frost is devastating to plants, and that is exactly what we had here on this crop on Dubai 1. Mandini. The most interesting and annoying thing, if you can call it that, about frost damage, it actually looks like your plants have been burnt. But what it is causing it is the opposite of heat. It is actually cold. Now, fortunately, we managed to get one small harvest out of the Dubai 1 green pepper crop after the first frost attack. But it wasn't that type of harvest, you know, what we had gotten used to. Ija crates, my crates and crates, na kg, as we like to say, that you were seeing earlier. Things had reached a crucial stage and we needed to make a decision. One of the things that vegetable farmers like ourselves, and I'm sure lots of other farmers have to do always, is to manage resources. In our case, our principal resources are threefold. Number one is water. It's not like we are swimming in water, literally, and we've got too much water. So the water that we're able to get from our sources needs to be distributed and used for the various crops that we have in the ground at the right time and in the right way. Number two is labor. We only have X amount of people working with us here at Mondo Farms. Yes, it might look like there are lots and lots and lots of them, but each one is working an X amount of hour day and can do X amount of work. So we needed to know if this crop was still going to need to be weeded, to be tended to be done with fruit balancing, and all of the things that our people do to this crop. And of course, there are things like fertilizers and the agrochems. Should we continue applying all of those to this crop? Had it already gone past its sell-by date after only a few months? We had expected it to be in the ground and to be producing for maybe 4 to 5. We've managed 6 to 7 months for some of our crops. So a decision needed to be made. Our farm manager Tyson and I were having one of our usual discussions on the phone, and he says, MD, I think this one is a goner. It's time to say goodbye. I wasn't so convinced, and I said to him, let's take one last look at the crop.
So we've had this crop since February when it was transplanted, and we've been harvesting, and we've been making good harvest from it. And until a couple of weeks ago, we were hit by frost. And now this is the crop recovering after doing remedial measures, applying stress fertilizers that help with stress, the fertilizers, and also irrigating the crop so that we have more foliage in it. So, based on Vimo and how it was, the first few days after it was hit by frost, na pea fika lilione kabwa.
Improve maningi because baada mafruits na boya kana fruiting amenda mtono mafruits na yambotoka flowering ita continue flowering and then mafruits na kuti pass again.
Okay.
Na peta improve chimani.
Esta improve ka? So vinango sivimangala ni instant pe hapo. So we applied maomni boosti machani Banovo Max vinaoneka mungati CV7 but apamanje mamboko yao na result. So life ikaliko.
So we looked at that video and we said, okay, it's not that bad. The problem with most of us farmers, Mandini, we can be quite optimistic to make up my own word. You've put in these months and months and months into this crop, and you really believe that you can do something to this crop to turn it around and get it through the challenges that it is coming. So we said, let's keep watering it for a little bit longer. And also, most importantly, let's feed it with the right things and hope that that will help it to go. In this particular case, the crop had reached the stage that we could not apply any more of the foliar sprays. Very simple reason. Foliar sprays require foliage, the leaves, amavula. In this case, most of the leaves from the green pepper crop had withered away due to the frost. So we couldn't exactly spray any foliar sprays on them. How else were we going to feed them? The primary way that plants take in nutrients and water and etc. is through the roots. So we decided to apply some granular fertilizer, which we could then apply down at the roots and then see if that would be taken up through, and that would help the whole plant through its metabolic system and circulatory system and whatever. We use a fertilizer for general purpose top dressing by Omnia called Green Self. We've been using it for years and it is a lekker product, lekker. So, Dubai 1 Block A. After the damage.
Yes.
John, hapa ni time yako nkala free. Ni time yanga kuona crop yako. After some time. Pari ya mene yambo shooting a footy. Ni yanu mwezo shooting up a video.
Yali yambili.
Kuna oxide. So apatagula Green South. Tifuna ticha him. Is there a harvest this Monday? Yo chosamo. Ingaleko na space. Okay. I came down myself. I was due to visit Winterthorn again after a couple of days, and I had to come down to Dubai 1 to see for myself how the crop was doing. I mean, the video updates are fine and all of that, but as the old saying goes, manso ni malonda. Sometimes it's hard not to be emotional when you look at your crops, when you see them suffering like this. Because we get such a boost when we see a beautiful green crop. Things don't look good for this crop. The cold weather has continued, and even the other day we found some frost damage for some of our winter maize down on Riverside 3 and 4 down there. You know, the annoying thing is that during the day, it can get quite sunny and warm. Like here where I'm standing in the sun, I'm feeling a bit warm. I even had to take off my vest earlier. But come nightfall, come the early hours of the morning, that's when the damage is done. It gets very, very cold, and that's when we're getting the frost. All right, look, it all seems a bit doom and gloom. It's all sad and bad and all of that. But we're quite confident that the green pepper production here at Mondo Farms will soon be swinging back into action. And that is because of a strategy that we adopted a couple of years ago. It's called succession planting. And the way that succession planting works is that when you start your crop and you start looking after it until it gets close to harvest, you're already making the next crop. And when that crop is coming up close to harvest, you're planting the next crop. And that system keeps our production levels moving at a reasonably steady pace, which we need for our income. The succession crop for this one here at Dubai 1 was transplanted on May the 3 at Kimberley Farm on Kondwani 1B. Where, Joseph? First of all, niona mufunika fruit balance yambili. Twapaka tu my guys.
Twapaka tu mama.
Because apatifuna ibalete. As I stand here filming this, we are now heading towards the very first harvest, which we expect to have in a couple of weeks' time or so. Just in time for the month end when more people buy their vegetables. After all, Nimakambati, farming is a business. And of course, the successor to the Kondwani crop, it's already in the ground. We transplanted it yesterday down on Riverside 1 DEF here at Winterthorn. We're already planning the next successor to that one, which will be further up the hill on Riverside 1 blocks A, B, C. And that will be going down in the ground in about a month plus or so. So things might look bad when you look across a crop like this here at Dubai 1, which has had so many challenges. But we've been farming for a while now. It's been a couple of years, and we are learning the ups and downs, the rounds and abouts of farming. We use strategies like succession planning in order to mitigate the effects of negative outcomes and to protect our income and keep the business of the farms viable. And besides, we always knew that having a crop of this down here on Dubai 1, this field at this time of year, it was always going to have some challenges. At the beginning of this video, we talked about, after watching it, you're going to be able to come to an opinion as to whether or not we should continue with this crop or retire it and put it to bed. These are some of the decisions that farmers are always having to make. Look, on the one hand, we've just put some green self-granular fertilizer in there. That is nicely dissolving and working. And if you look around carefully, there are some signs of light there. We might even have a harvest this coming Monday. On the other hand, maybe we should just be focusing, forget about this, and focus on the new crops, the one at Kondwani 1B and the one down at Riverside 1 DEF. Farmers are always having to make decisions and choices. Tell us what you think in the comments below. So that is our story of the Dubai 1 green pepper crop from early 2024. These are the type of things we share here on the Mondo Farms channel. We have 2 farms on the outskirts of Chongwe that specialize in vegetables throughout the year, that grow pine, eucalyptus, and casuarina trees for the long term, and that we also grow field crops during the rainy season. We do videos like this in order to share towards the development and the progress of Africa's agricultural sector. This continent has the capacity to feed itself, and all we need to do is know what we're doing and get better at doing it. Mondo Farms is committed to continuing what we started in 2021 of producing these videos as regularly as possible. Sometimes they come out after 2 weeks, sometimes it's a month or so. We're busy people and we have other things to do, but we are always stay committed to what we do. A lot of people have been giving us a lot of feedback about what they think about what we're doing and asking us for various topics that they would like to see covered. And we would like to be getting down to each of those in good time. There's people that you know that would benefit maybe from seeing this video. And if you press the share button on your whatever it is you're watching YouTube on, you will be able to send this video to them. If you think the video was worthy of your stamp of approval, then what we'd like you to do is press the thumbs up button. That shows the YouTube algorithm that this is the video that people enjoy, and it will then be suggested to more and more people with an interest in Africa, African agriculture, and farming and such like. You want to watch a few more of these videos? The easiest thing you can do is go down below and press the subscribe button. And if you press the bell icon, YouTube will let you know when another one does come along. My name is Chisha Folotia. It's been my pleasure being with you. And one thing I wanted to remember, it's been on my mind the last couple of days. It's something that an old man said at Mos Eisley Spaceport when he said, "These aren't the droids you're looking for." Shale Nipo. Bye-bye.